Bendy and the Ink Machine is a series that has definitely made a name for itself in the indie horror scene. Within the game, you assume the role of Henry, an artist who has long since departed from his old job of being an animator. After 30 years, he comes back to the original studio he worked for because his old friend, Joey Drew, had sent him a letter. There was something he needed to show Henry, and Henry heeds his call. For the first 2 chapters, Henry wanders around this establishment trying to piece together just what is going on here. It's a lot to take in, but despite the horrors he encounters, Henry still tends to remain calm. I imagine the memories came flooding in upon discovery of his old desk, a desk from half a lifetime ago. Despite all these weird occurrences, he presses on. And things only get weirder. He discovers a real-life animated character gutted upon an operating table, several ink creatures out for his blood, weird moving paper cutouts of Bendy, and then there's this whole thing with the cultists, pentagrams, and Bendy the Ink God. Now, that's a ton to wrap one's head around, but in this video we're going to actually connect all the dots. All the way down to those bacon soup cans, because yes, those play a critical role. Let's start off by laying the groundwork for what probably set all of this into motion. You have this struggling animation studio that probably had to close its doors decades ago. For anyone who has ever animated frame by frame, you know how time intensive of a skill it is. Now, the software of today has certainly made things a tad easier, but also the number of frames per second has gone up as well. Modern cartoons typically run at 30 frames per second, meaning there are 30 composited images in 1 second of animation. Oftentimes, characters are shot in 2s when moving, meaning you only need 15 frames because they are doubled up. This same principle applies to 24 frames per second as well, which has been the standard of film for a very long time. On that note, the more people you have working, the faster things can get done. According to Wikipedia, Studio Ghibli has around 150 employees as of 2016. Think about how long it takes them to make a traditionally animated movie with a staff of that relatively large size. Assuming at least 2/3, if not more, of all those employees are animators. 100 people working 60 plus hours a week to create a 2-hour movie in the time span of a year to a year and a half. Perhaps less time, and perhaps with other animators helping them out. Disney, for example, works with several animation studios across the world on top of their own. And then you have Joey Drew with a staff of 6. Only 2 of those are animators. While they aren't making the next Spirited Away, even the simple animations of the past were very time intensive. Corners were certainly cut to speed up the process, and this is more than likely why Bendy has a floating head with a bow tie at the top of his torso. The head could be animated separately from the body, meaning fewer drawings had to be made. Henry and Joey were an army of 2, but they still had to pour in tons of hours to see any success out of it, and it just wasn't lucrative for them. They couldn't animate fast enough, and thus the business suffered immensely. A dream was crushed, and a studio was closed. However, a defeated Joey adapted by spending his time on something else. Something that would speed up the animation process immensely. Something that became sinister. This is where the ink machine comes into play. If animation could be produced exponentially faster, or even automated, then there might be hope after all. It also appears that a person by the name of Murray Hill, or a company by that name, is the go-to person or place for repair. It looks like this isn't the first version either, but I digress. Things took a turn for the worse though. Joey stumbled upon something that made him insane, and those around him took notice. Whatever powered this ink machine was sinister at its core, but the end goal is all that was important to Joey. Perhaps he never noticed what was evolving around him, or maybe he knew all along. So now we have this satanic machine that instead of automating the animation process, is actually bringing animations to life. But why? How? And what is it all working towards? Let's put on our detective hats and dive a little deeper. There's a book found in the game called The Illusion of Living. People picked up on this reference to the book The Illusion of Life right away, myself included. When I was in college, we had to study the 12 principles of animation religiously. They would make an animation feel alive, and not so mechanical. It's a book all professional traditional animators know about, for the most part. However, while the book in the game is in reference to the real book, the meaning behind the book in the game is quite different. There's devil's horns etched into the cover, and it's written by Joey himself. Whatever dark secrets he discovered were probably logged into this book, and he was more than likely at a very dark place in his life. Perhaps he turned to demonic rituals as his state of mind grew darker. These animations were simply an illusion created by mankind. Only humans can breathe life into a drawing and make it live as a series of movements, but perhaps demonic influence could make it much more than that. This is all in the realm of theorizing, of course. So, creepy ink machine plus the demonic drive to consume equals an animation workshop turned hellhole. Judging by the audio entries in the game, it's apparent that Sammy caught on pretty soon to this whole endeavor. He often disappeared into the secret hall in the orchestra room, according to Norden. And this character didn't know this place existed, but we'd uncover it in the second chapter. Much like Joey, Sammy became obsessed with what Joey discovered. Perhaps life is only an illusion because your animation stops when you're dead. But if you are no longer human, would it really be an illusion? And now we are in Night in the Woods territory again with the concept of a Faustian Bargain. A deal is struck with the devil, something of power is granted to the one who signs, and then misfortune and chaos falls upon them and the land. So Sammy and possibly Joey are given immortality in the form of having a body made of ink, but they are bound to serve the one who gave them those powers, Bendy. Or at least what is taking on the form of Bendy. Perhaps it's even Joey himself. However, to continue this cycle, and to satisfy their demonic hunger, more people must be brought in and sacrificed. The ink needs to be fed, or it may simply dry out. But that's not the only issue here, because now I think the ink wants a way out. It was summoned to this dark studio, but I have a feeling it doesn't want to remain there forever. That's why bodies are needed, and that's why the searchers are lurking about. This might be a bit of a stretch, but I think the searchers are searching for a host, a human body to call their own. Without a body, they remain an inky mess that can't stray too far from its source. The concept is actually pretty interesting, and as a side note, it's very similar to something I'm writing about in a book of mine, where a formless entity needs an object or another living being to conform to, a vessel to become its host, so it can truly be alive and free. It's like inky necromancy to some degree. Or, on the flip side, all of these creatures act together with a hive mind, and their only goal is to feed Bendy. Bendys Ink is a form of life itself, with the ability to bestow life or take it away. The last part of this is the bacon soup cans. Of course, I couldn't figure about those. Now, these cans cost around 5 cents judging by the cover of them. Truly the food of a starving artist trying to make a living in the animation business. However, the weird thing about these cans is that they are branded with Bendy. Not only do they feature his imagery, but they also state, just the way the little devil likes it. The cans are twisted and contorted a bit, which makes me think the contents are questionable. The Meatly on Twitter even stated that it's good for the body and soul. It makes me wonder from whose perspective this is coming from though. If it was Joey's, good for the soul carries a totally different meaning. I mean, the guy went off on the deep end forcing his employees to appease the gods. He then went on to build a devilish machine. So, in my eyes, that's a huge red flag screaming, this isn't good for anyone. Which is where all of this comes full circle. You have a product that people adore because it features their favorite cartoon character, but it could contain something besides just bacon soup. We don't know for sure where this is actually manufactured, nor do we know the reach of Bendy's devilish ink. It makes me wonder if this ink will spread to the public in a way to feed the endless hunger of Bendy, or as a way to convert people over to inky followers. Now obviously that is a huge leap that will probably be debunked in future chapters. However, I like to assume that the soup plays a role other than just a nod to someone's favorite food, or the well-being of a struggling animator. It's totally far-fetched, but I have a feeling we're only beginning to see just how far-fetched this Bendy empire will become. So don't be surprised the next time you're popping open your favorite can of SpaghettiOs, and an ink monster pops out and tries to possess you. Just saying. But now that I've dumped that on all of you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. With what we currently know about Bendy and the Ink Machine, what is your prediction of the plot? How have you theorized piecing all of this together? The fun part is sharing ideas amongst each other, regardless of how likely they are to occur. That's what makes theorizing fun. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, Thanks for tuning in to this ink-stained trip to the depths of a dark studio. If you'd like to join me on my YouTube voyage and continue to dive into the mysteries behind your favorite games, then the subscribe button is just what you're looking for. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers. If you like this video, perhaps you'll enjoy some of my others. There's a slew of other theories on this channel too, so regardless, I hope you enjoy.